Hi guys, we're in St. Franceville, Louisiana, and right now I'm standing in front of the Green Plantation house that was built that slaves used to work in. And a family actually lives here that just sold it, and they are not giving tours, but they will be, and they just sold it, and now a new owner is coming.
How big is the plantation?
The plantation is 20 square miles big. Bye. See you later.
And you already know on this channel we hold racist Caucasian people accountable, because if we don't, who will? And before we start this video, if you don't like black people, black issues, black talks, get to stepping. And look, I have to speak from the heart right quick. I have to say this. Look, I have hatred towards no one. But if you a cop and you murder my people and you get away with it, it's up with me. If you a doctor and you murder black women while they're in labor, it's up with me. If you own a plantation, if you work at a plantation, if you make money from a plantation, you get married at a plantation, it's up with me, because right now my mom is going through it. She's, finding the family on her father's side, and she just got a picture of her grandmother. I'm telling y'all, in Louisiana, those Louisiana plantations broke up so many families, and today they still disrespecting our ancestors. Check this out. And this article is by The Advocate in Baton Rouge. It was published June 11, 2025. That was last week. Louisiana plantation opens for weddings again after 3 years under new partnership. St. Francisville, based Louisiana Hospitality Group, which operates the St. Francisville Inn, has partnered with Greenwood Plantation. Greenwood Plantation, a 200-acre estate at 6838 Highland Road in St. Francisville, is privately owned. The property closed to weddings and corporate events in 2022. However, under a new partnership, LHG will oversee the plantation's lodgings, bed and breakfast, weddings, and corporate events starting July 1st, 2025. The Oak Alley, a setting for ceremonies under 200-year-old oak trees. An intimate indoor ceremony space accommodating up to 50 guests. Make that make sense. And till this day, if you go to St. Francisville, you can smell the racism in the air. Tell me I'm lying. And just like the Nottoway Plantation, the Greenwood Plantation, they got bed and breakfast, they hosting weddings, and they turning slave quarters into Airbnbs. And this the cold part. They giving wedding ceremonies under the 200-year-old oak trees, the same oak trees our ancestors was hung from. These people really doing rituals. And y'all know me, I had to do my research on Greenwood Plantation. I had to find a recent video, and I found one from 2 months ago, and you can't tell me this not a demon. Run the tape.
Welcome to Butler Greenwood Plantation. My name is Ann Butler, and this place is still in the original family. My grandchildren are the 9th generation on the place. It was started in the 1790s on Spanish land grants here. This is the old kitchen bed and breakfast, and it's the most historic of all of our cottages. It was built in the 1790s, and they did all of the cooking out here. First on an open hearth, and later a wood stove. I remember them cooking out here into the 1960s when my grandmother died. All of our cottages have their full kitchens, and we provide continental breakfast stocked in every cottage so that you can do your own thing without having to chit-chat with the old ladies from Peoria around the breakfast table. Now, where else could you stay in a bed and breakfast place with a double jacuzzi, and you can look over on one side to the original well, which is 115 feet deep and still has 6 feet of water in it, and you can look out the other side into the backyard and see all the wonderful live oak trees. Every cottage has its own fireplace. But this one was where they smoked all the meats and everything. This was the smokehouse part of the kitchen. And that's why the beams are all black. St. Francisville is a wonderful place to come and visit. There are gardens all over the place. There are Tunica Hills with the deep hollows and steep hills, wonderful for recreation. We're right on the Mississippi River. So you've got good bluffs and overlooks for that, nice kayaking and fishing. So come and visit us in St. Francisville.
Make that make sense. Now, you can't tell me this woman is not a demon. This woman said you can be in a jacuzzi and look down at a 115 feet water well and then look outside the window at the oak trees, the same oak trees our ancestors died on. Am I tripping or something? And this the crazy part. They love calling these a cottage. That's not a cottage. That's slave quarters. And I'm starting to notice something about these plantations. They never tell you the real history. To them, it's all about money. Well, that's why we have my channel, so we can expose the real truth about these plantations, the real history about these plantations. Check this out. Yes, enslaved people built Greenwood Plantation. The plantation, located in West Feliciana, Louisiana, was built in the 1830s by William Ruffin Barrow. And at its peak, the plantation housed 750 enslaved people who worked the cotton and sugarcane fields. These enslaved individuals were also responsible for the construction and maintenance of the plantation complex, including the main house, outbuildings, and infrastructure. The original Greenwood Plantation in Louisiana was not burned down by anyone. It was destroyed by a fire caused by lightning in 1960. The plantation was rebuilt based on surviving elements and historical records. Make that make sense. And I keep telling y'all, our ancestors built this country, but they have the audacity to call our people lazy. Then they want to say, the fire, a lightning strike caused the fire in 1960. But let's be real. If you know, you know. And I looked on their website. They said nothing about this. Check this out. Yes, it is highly likely that slaves were buried in unmarked ground at Greenwood Plantation in Louisiana, as was common practice on many plantations. Enslaved people were often buried in unmarked graves, sometimes in designated areas on the outskirts of the plantation or even in more remote locations. These burial sites were often not marked with headstones or other visible markers, and over time, these unmarked graves can become difficult to locate. Make that make sense. So let me get this straight. First of all, you separate our ancestors from their family members. Then you change their last names. Then you don't give them a proper grave site. And in 2025, on the same land, underneath the same oak trees our ancestors died on, y'all have the audacity to have weddings and then turn around and tell us slavery is over, get over the past. But that's why I'm so thankful that the Nottoway Plantation burned down, because it really opened our eyes. But I'll keep telling y'all, times have changed. The ancestors are stepping. So Greenwood Plantation, I need y'all to listen. If y'all think y'all can move on through life having weddings under the same oak trees where our ancestors died on, lost their lives on, bled on, you know what? Never mind. The ancestors got it from here. I'm out.
Enslaved actually left certain markers, even though they were stripped of their heritage, their culture, their language, certain symbols, they couldn't play the drums and what have you. But I found something that I would say they did leave their mark, and that would be this particular one right here. We grew up as kids seeing this in a lot of the ironworks around Savannah, a lot of the ironworks around Charleston, South Carolina. And this is an Indinker symbol. This is an Indinker symbol. This is an Indinker symbol. Matter of fact, every one of these are Indinker symbols. But this particular one is Sankofa. And Sankofa, being an Indinker symbols, and some of these symbols have been around for hundreds of years, but being around this as a little boy, or people just seeing things like that, we never knew what the meanings were. We never knew that it was even an Indinker symbol until I started studying it. This particular one, like many of the Indinker symbols, delivers a message. I like to call them proverbs, words of wisdom and what have you. This one tells you to go back and fetch it, to go back and get your history, because without your past, you don't know your future. This Indinker symbol is called Sankofa.